Before you say anything, hear me out. Yes, dude, I got a Dell. But no, I didn't pay anything for it. No, I didn't steal it. And no, I didn't build it from parts. I got this machine today from a landfill, of all places. A coworker and I generally visit the local town landfill in a very affluent community in which he's a resident of, so we can do this legally. In this town, the people are generally extremely wasteful. They throw away plasma TVs, widescreen CRT televisions, brand new computer equipment. This isn't brand new, but there's nothing wrong with it. As we were about to leave, there was nothing really worth taking at that point. This guy pulls in a Lexus of all cars, or maybe it was an Infiniti, doesn't matter. He was about to heave this thing, 500 yards into the scrap pile, and I'm like, oh, I'll take that. So I didn't care what it was. It was a laptop, and I didn't have time to ask him what it was before he reduced it to rubble. So he handed it to me and took off. This is a Dell Latitude 7000, manufactured late 1999, early 1999, sorry. The machine was complete with a power supply and a fully charged battery. I did actually have some minor dialogue with him, and he said that the machine was acting funny. It was running Windows 98. It was very slow. Well, as soon as he said that, I knew what was wrong with it. Well, there were two things wrong, actually, in addition to what I initially expected. The hard disk drive was failing. It had the original half height, 2.5 inch. It was a Seagate. No, it was a IBM Travel Star, 8 gig. And the drive was, in some cases when a drive is about to fail, it will continuously read over and over and over again before it gets it right. Well, that was the case. It took about 10 minutes to boot it up. So, I brought it to my lab. I replaced the hard drive. I put Windows 2000 on it, and it's a wonderful machine. Specifications are Pentium 2, 333. I don't believe it's an MMX chip. It does have 256 megs of memory. It's got now a 10 gig hard drive. It was one of my scrap drives that I had at home. It has a DVD-ROM, 3.5 inch floppy in one module, and it has, I believe, about 4 megabytes of video memory. Actually, that's something I haven't checked out yet. Let's take a gander. This is more of a business machine than anything. So it has, let's see, it's a Pentium 2, 3, it says 300, but it's really a 333. It has 8 megabytes of dedicated video memory, it appears to have. And, well, that's not too bad. But anyway, the important part is it's fixed. Now, there was a structural flaw, if you will, but not a major one. These Dells are, unlike the current models, which are built very, very poorly, this was built very well for 1999. The screen hinges were loose. What happens is, because of the way they're designed, and that is poorly, the way they're designed, they have a tendency to loosen up. I can pull this cover off, I can show you why. Let's find a screwdriver, or a pick, that'll do. Okay, here we go. If you notice, the screen hinge itself, the shaft is mounted to this cast alloy block, which is it extends over to this point here. This block is screwed on to the magnesium frame. Now, the problem is, you notice there's 3 screws here, but if you notice how close together they are, so the twisting action happens like this, which puts a lot of stress on this screw right here. Too much stress. This screw is screwed into nothing for the most part, and these two also almost nothing. So what happens is, over time, the forward and backwards motion of the display hinge, which is very tight on this model, it tends to basically beat up threads on all 3 of these screws. More importantly, the first one in the middle. This is the most important screw on the hinge because that helps reduce the stress from the forward and back motion. So what happened is this screw was completely stripped out, and these 2 weren't. They were just loosened up, thank God. I was able to pull this all apart, and I put some epoxy, a thin layer of epoxy, between the 2 halves of this hinge. Screwed it back together, which clamped the epoxy in between the 2 pieces of metal. Let it sit for 2 hours, and it hardened like a rock. So I could almost take these screws out, and the hinge won't break. The whole idea is to reduce the stress on the center screw. And that is how you fix Latitude Inspiron 7000 hinge if it hasn't broken yet. So I was still in a good position to fix it. So now it's good as new. I did it on both hinges, and I'm happy to say it's nice and tight. That was one fix I had to do, in addition to replacing the hard disk drive, which neither repair cost me a dime because I had the parts at home and I already had a tube of epoxy. So what I wound up with was a free laptop, even though it's not fast, it's not a performer, but it's a decent machine for web browsing, word processing, basically everything I use my laptop for. This is going to replace the G3 Kanga, which will now be retired to the museum, which is currently in disarray. There's my 170. The Kanga is sitting on a shelf over there somewhere. So, here we have it. The battery is original, and it's been running off the battery for about 2 hours now. It's a damn good battery. Let's see if I can pull the battery life right now. I turned off processor cycling so it'll stay on high speed at all times. Now my plan is to use this machine mainly for DVDs, take it to the laundromat for the free web browsing whenever I do my laundry. But it's I think it's a decent machine for what it is and for what I paid for it, which wasn't much of anything. It still thinks it's on AC power. I don't know why that is, but could be just a bug in the software. Who knows? Enable advanced power management support. Let's do that. Maybe that'll fix something. Searching for drivers. Oh, I might have to download some more drivers. The amazing thing is, the only thing I had to do to make this run Windows 2000 was flash the BIOS. Another thing, if you happen to have this machine, you won't be able to run Windows 2000 unless you have BIOS version A13 or later. This had A06. So now that that's fixed, I think that's really all I had to do, to be honest with you. So, well, another thing to note is even though this display is as old as it is, it's fairly bright. It's slightly yellowed. You can tell that the fluorescent tube isn't new anymore. But then again, many of these machines had a slight yellow tint to them as well when they were new. So, who knows? Well, until then, that's all the time we have for now. And if you happen to own an Inspiron 7000, feel free to ask me any question you want. I've played with this enough to know how it works. So, well, until then.